Hi, I'm very excited to be able to welcome you to my masterclass, especially for doctors and medical researchers regarding answering questions after you've given your presentation at a medical conference. I hope to be able to give you an overview of what is fundamental if you want to feel confident speaking English, answering questions that your colleagues pose to you after you've given your presentation. So, let's dive straight in. Speak English confidently at medical conferences, a masterclass specifically for doctors and medical researchers. Welcome to Speak English Confidently at Medical Conferences. So in this masterclass, you'll learn why you don't understand native speakers easily, how to understand questions at conferences, how to show confidence in communication with colleagues, and how to answer questions confidently and professionally. Objectives of this masterclass. So, expectations. This masterclass is for you if you make presentations in English at international conferences, and also if you can hold a general conversation in English with your colleagues, even if your grammar isn't perfect. But this masterclass is not for you if you want to improve your English grammar and if you want to learn medical English. I do not teach medical English. The objectives. In this masterclass, you'll learn how to better understand and communicate in English with your colleagues at an international medical conference, even if your English skills and your grammar and vocabulary are not as good as you would like them to be. About me. Let me introduce myself. So I'm Susan, a British teacher and languages lover. As a globetrotter, I've been through the uncomfortable experience of not being able to communicate adequately, and therefore I'm here to make you feel more confident speaking English with colleagues at international conferences and respond to questions on your presentations without feeling embarrassed and inadequate. About you. You're a medical professional. You're a professional and you like to present your medical research results at international conferences. You're an expert in your field and you can speak about your work confidently in your own language. Your level of English. Your level of English is definitely sufficient if you're able to give a presentation on a complex medical research study that you've carried out. But you feel uncomfortable answering questions in English about your research because you feel your level of English is inadequate and you have difficulty understanding your colleagues' questions. What's the focus of this masterclass? The focus of this masterclass is not to teach you medical English, you're the medical expert, but to teach you how to feel more confident speaking English with your colleagues, learning to understand their questions regarding your presentation, giving answers to those questions with the English you already know, even if you make grammar mistakes. So communicating your ideas confidently in English is the focus of this masterclass. Why you don't understand native speakers easily. Listen to this conversation between two native speakers. I've written it exactly how they pronounce it. Hi Tom, here you are, where's Bill? He couldn't make it this year. What is it? Is he busy? He's going through an uncomfortable situation. As you can see, this conversation is very difficult to understand, especially because I've written it exactly how two people would pronounce it in very fluent English. Two native speakers, in fact. You don't understand native speakers easily. Now, this is a conversation between non-native speakers, and so I've written the way it should be written, but underneath I've written the equivalent, just changing the names of what was said in the previous conversation, just so you can understand and make comparisons. Peter says, "Hi Jan, here you are, where's Franz? He couldn't make it this year, which means he couldn't come this year. What is it? Is he busy?" "Yes, he's going through an uncomfortable situation." First of all, when you can read it properly, obviously it's much easier to understand. But if you look below at the writing referring to the previous conversation, you can see that here you are is pronounced slightly less distinctly in the previous conversation, and where's has a definite Z sound to it. Where's fronts. And instead of saying he, it's E, and instead of saying couldn't, so without the T at the end, couldn't, make it becomes make it because it's a glottal stop, so we don't hear the T. And then this year, we don't hear the R at the end, and we hear a very S sound, a strong S sound. So Jan would say he couldn't make it this year, whilst Tom in the previous conversation said he couldn't make it this year. So I exaggerated it a little bit now, but just to make you understand the difference. It said, what is it? Whilst in the previous conversation it was, what is it? And is he busy becomes, is he busy? Then in the final sentence, he's going through an uncomfortable situation becomes he's going through an uncomfortable situation. You can see that the conversation between two non-native speakers is much easier to understand. And this is the first point you have to understand, that if you are at an international conference, it's very likely that the majority are non-native, unless you are particularly in an English-speaking country where lots of native speakers have come along. So the first thing to understand is it isn't always your problem and that you don't understand English or that you don't express yourself sufficiently, but it's more a question of native speakers eliminating a lot of sounds or connecting a lot of sounds, and non-native speakers speaking more clearly. But you have to bear in mind that non-native speakers might be the majority, and that should be encouraging. You won't have to speak to native speakers as much as non-native speakers. So why don't you understand native speakers easily? It's all about connected speech. Have a look here. I haven't used the International Phonetic Alphabet because not many people are familiar with it, and I've tried to transcribe it more or less phonetically as people should be able to read it. So where do you live is transcribed where do you live. And you can see that no native speaker would say where do you live, but they would connect the do and the you and say Jew, and it becomes where do you live. So if you're not expecting that from the context, it'll be maybe a little bit more difficult to understand. Where do you live? But obviously the context makes things easier. So there are different forms of connected speech. The first one is catenation or linking. So if the last sound of a word is a consonant and the first sound of the next word is a vowel, they're usually linked, and you can see here is he, the H doesn't count, and it's the sound because we won't actually say the H in fluent colloquial English, we'll say izzy. And then the word busy, so is he busy instead of is he busy. Or pick and it, pick it up becomes pick it up. So the CK and the I connect, and then the T and the U connect. Pick it up. Or what is it becomes what is it. So if you're not expecting that, you can wonder what's been said. Another form of connected speech is called intrusion, and it's an additional sound which comes between two others. And it's usually either a J, a W, or an R sound that comes between two other vowel sounds. So go out, we'll put the W between it, go out. Oil, we'll put an R between it and become tuna oil. Victoria and Albert Museum. So the Victoria and, we'll put an R between it and it'll become Victorian. And then there is the linking between the D and the A, and that becomes D'Albert. So Victorian D'Albert Museum. Finally, I agree. The I and the A are connected with the J as a Y sound. So I agree. I agree. Actually, yes, it's more a Y sound. I should have put the Y, but I didn't think about it. Another form is elision. Elision is when a sound disappears between two stronger or similar sounds next to it, so it's usually a T or a D, but not necessarily. Remember, here we're speaking about the sound, not the letter. So, for example, the most common becomes most common, eliminating the T. Used to becomes used to, and it eliminates the D. I don't know becomes I dunno. So the T and the K disappear totally, apart from the fact that the K is a silent letter in any case. Camera eliminates the E, camera. Comfortable eliminates the or and becomes comfortable. Vegetable eliminates the E and becomes vegetable. Fish and chips eliminates the two letters before and after the N in and, fish and chips. And here you are becomes here you are. Assimilation is another form of connected speech and not the only one. There are others, but these are the four most prominent. So in assimilation, two sounds blend together, forming a new sound, which are usually the T and the J, ch, and the D and the J, j. So would you like instead of would you like? Don't you instead of don't you? Won't you instead of won't you? Meet you or meet you instead of meet you? And did you instead of did you? Now I've actually put a you, but probably speaking it would be more a schwa sound. So did you, meet you, won't you, don't you? Yeah, it's more a schwa sound than a proper you. Now you can understand why it's very difficult to understand native speakers if they're connecting the speech in this way. The next aspect we have to evaluate is the difference between pronunciation and accent. So pronunciation is the way a word should be articulated, and words have standard pronunciations. An accent instead is a regional or international difference in how one pronounces those standard sounds. You can speak English with a Scottish accent, an Irish accent, an Australian accent, a New Zealand accent, a South African accent, an American accent, but also a French, a German or a Spanish accent. This is the accent that you bring from your heritage, from your original language where you grew up. Accents are a characteristic of a certain population, and as long as the pronunciation is precise, the accent can give the language an interesting flavour but still be comprehensible. You shouldn't really worry about your accent as long as you are pronouncing the words in a way that is comprehensible, that allows communication. This is the most fundamental thing. The pronunciation is what counts, not the accent. How to face questions at conferences. So, how do you understand and answer questions at the end of a presentation? First of all, you need to relax, because to sound confident and to think clearly, you need to relax. You also need to make eye contact with the questioner and look at the audience while answering. You need to listen very carefully to the whole question, because you don't need to answer the question immediately. You first need to make sure that you understand the question and the context before answering. And if you're not sure you've understood a question, you should ask them to explain, because repeating may not be sufficient. And if you don't understand, don't worry, because it could also be an acoustic problem. It's not necessarily always your English skills which are at fault. You can ask them to stand up and ask their questions, expressing it in other words if you still don't understand. And it gives them the impression it's really an acoustic problem, and it also gives you a third chance to hear the question. Then you can ask a question to clarify if you've understood. And before answering, you can express the importance of their question by saying, "Oh, that's a good point." You should always pause to think before answering the question, so you can collect your thoughts and take a deep breath and answer slowly without being stressed, so you can answer competently. And don't forget to smile while answering, always keeping calm. How to understand questions at conferences. Anticipating questions at conferences. So one of the best ways to prepare for a question and answer session called Q&A after a presentation is to anticipate questions, which means you have to expect questions of a certain kind. Another is predicting difficult questions by colleagues who like to contradict your findings in order to maintain your confidence. Anticipating possible questions regarding your presentation will help you to understand the questions more easily and also make you look more confident, more competent and professional. So knowing what questions to expect will also give you the possibility to prepare materials in advance and illustrate the answer. They'll help you confront any questions posed by difficult colleagues. Last of all, you have to stay calm. How to understand questions at conferences. An equally important way to prepare for questions and answers after a presentation is to revise question formation. Asking questions isn't as easy as it seems. There are questions with auxiliary verbs, questions with non-auxiliary verbs, questions with who, what, where, when, how, why, and indirect questions. And all of these questions can be asked in any tense. So if you become confident asking questions in all its modalities and tenses, you'll be better prepared to understand questions and also be equipped to confidently ask your own questions after the presentation of your colleagues. Is everything clear so far? Any questions? This is something that you can also ask during the presentation, not necessarily the questions, because that's something that you should leave till the end. It makes it easier. But is everything clear so far? You can see if everyone is following you or if you have to slow down. So it's important to realize that understanding the question is the first step to being able to answer the questions confidently and professionally. Understanding the question may not depend on your English language skills, but could also be an acoustic problem, a problem of the speaker's accent or pronunciation, or a problem of the speaker's unclear formulation of the question. So don't automatically assume it depends on you. How to show confidence in communication with colleagues. Body language. The importance of body language is highly underestimated. In fact, according to Professor Marabian, communication is 7% verbal. That's only 7% of spoken language, 55% of body language, and 38% the tone of your voice. So body language is fundamental when you're giving a presentation and when you're answering questions. Posture. Stand straight and have your feet directly under your shoulders, keeping your shoulders back and relaxed. Look at the audience, keep your body open and hold your arms loose to the sides, except when you're gesticulating. Breathing. It's very important to take deep breaths. This will help you project your voice with power and also relax you. Breathe slowly to pace your speech, because if you're speaking too quickly, you'll get nervous and nobody will understand you. Pause for emphasis. So pausing is something that you should do more often than sounds natural to you, and you should also speak slightly more slowly than you would naturally, just to be sure that everyone can understand you. And last of all, smile to make your audience feel more comfortable. How to show confidence in communication with colleagues. You have to use gestures to emphasize your words. They also help you maintain the audience's attention when you're using your head, your arms and your hands. If you use positive gestures, you can influence your audience. And if you watch your audience, they'll follow your hands and your eyes. Watch what your audience is doing. Eye contact is very important, so make eye contact with the person who asked you the question for sincerity and also credibility. But move your eyes from face to keep your audience engaged. So don't only look at the person who asked the question. Movement. Move around the platform, the stage, to be more dynamic, and also use movement to transition from one point to the next. If you want to persuade your audience, step towards them. How to answer questions confidently and professionally. Inviting questions. Here are a couple of things that you could say when you want to invite people to ask questions. If you have any questions regarding this research, please speak slowly and clearly. Could you please rephrase the question? I'm sorry, I still don't understand. Could we talk about it after the session? It's a great question. Thanks for asking. Paraphrasing. Paraphrasing is one of the most important skills to learn in order to confirm that you've understood what the other person is saying. If you're in doubt, before answering the question, you should paraphrase it and see if the person who asked the question confirms it. This avoids embarrassment and gives you the confidence to answer the question professionally. How to answer questions confidently and professionally. Time to think before answering. To signal that you're preparing to answer but need a few seconds to think, you can say, "Good question. Well," and then you start your answer. "That's a good or interesting question. Okay. Ah, yes, that's a good point. Let me think. Let me consider this a moment. Let's see." And when you're answering, you can start with these sentences. First of all, I would say that, I'm not sure, but maybe at the moment I think, from what I understand, basically, I can confirm that the situation at the moment is, I can definitely say that, well, more or less I would say that. How to answer questions confidently and professionally. So there are the provocative questions. There will always be that colleague who wants to demonstrate that he's superior or that his research is better. He may want to provoke you with questions that may be difficult to answer or may put you in an embarrassing situation. It's very important to eliminate the negativity by smiling, using open, relaxed body language and not becoming emotionally involved. So just answer the question or say, "Can you help me understand why you think that?" with specific examples. And some phrases to express that you disagree could be, "Apparently we have different points of view. Maybe we can continue the conversation in private. I understand your point, but my approach is different. We're not going to be able to resolve this here. Maybe we can talk more later. I'm not sure that's correct, but we can discuss it later. Thanks for the comment. Thanks for the question. It's something for me to think about." So this is what we've spoken about during the masterclass. Why you don't understand native speakers easily. It may depend on a series of factors which are not necessarily your English language skills. How to understand questions at conferences. Prepare and anticipate any possible questions so you can also prepare the answers. How to show confidence in communication with colleagues. Body language is key, but also breathing and gestures. How to answer questions confidently and professionally. Learn to paraphrase, pause to think, and reply slowly and carefully. Don't stress. For more in-depth training, join my Speak English Confidently at Medical Conferences course. Thank you for joining my masterclass. If you want to connect with me, I have a website, speaklanguagesandtraveltheworld.com. My LinkedIn profile is Susan Broder 789241113. I have a YouTube channel at Speak Languages Travel the World. I have a Facebook page and a Facebook group, an Instagram account, a Twitter account, and I'm also on Pinterest with my English fluency secrets. I look forward to connecting you. Thank you for joining my masterclass. I hope this presentation was useful for you, and I look forward to seeing you inside my course in future. Bye!